Good morning and welcome to my lecture over history of the march. The march is considered to be the original band music. So as a form, the march probably dates back to the 16th century BC when music was said to have accompanied the movement of soldiers. This is different from other music of the time because it's not vocal and it doesn't include any string instruments, which makes it the original band music. The word march stems from the French word marcher, which means to pound the ground with the feet, and was used to describe military music, which accompanied troop movements as early as the 30 Years' War. This is kind of a cool word. In the next video, you're going to be able to actually hear the troops' feet as they're marching. So you can actually hear it, and that adds, I guess, to the identity of the music form being called the march. Most European infantry units adopted this style of music to facilitate organized marching. So there's tons of styles of marches because all over Europe and probably Asia, anywhere where they were using military movements like signals to go certain directions, to start, to stop, anywhere where they were doing that kind of fighting, the march became prevalent. But back then, marches were primitive and were commonly played by fifes, which is like a prehistoric flute, and drums. Examples of very early marches are Lillibullero, which is an English march, and King James's March, which is a Scottish march. The most common time signature during the 18th century was actually 60 to 80 beats per minute, which is ridiculously slow. If we were to march at that tempo at our UIL contest, the judges would think we were crazy. Quick marches were between 100 and 140 beats per minute.
Company! Forward! March!
So you can hear the feet of the soldiers. You can see that they were staying in lines, even though they're not straight for our sort of marching band. This video is of one of the most recognizable fife and drum marches. The title is the British Grenadiers, and it's been featured in lots of movies. The golden age of the march is the beginning of the 19th century. Martial music was used not only for the movement of troops, but also for pageantry, state ceremonies, and social functions. One of Sousa's marches, the Washington Post, is actually a two-step and was very common in ballrooms around this time. As military band instrumentation and techniques developed, the march developed in sophistication and complexity. So the better instruments, the better musicians we have, the harder music we get to play. So as everybody was getting better, composers came back and gave more and more difficult music for those people. In addition to hundreds of pieces dedicated to military units, marches were also being composed for occasions, institutions, and famous people. For example, Radetzky March was written in honor of a field general in the, I want to say German army. The 2nd Regiment Connecticut National Guard March is obviously written for the 2nd Regiment of the Connecticut National Guard. And the Liberty Bell by John Philip Sousa was written to honor the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. There are several different types of marches, and we're going to get into those. Military marches usually can be easily identified by how fast they go. Their tempos range between 108 and 120 beats per minute, which is a really small window. They demand precise rhythm and articulation and the proper use of accents, which actually all marches do. Military marches are the most popular and common type of American march. Examples are Stars and Stripes Forever by John Philip Sousa, Americans We by Henry Fillmore, and the Smyre High School Band has performed 2 military marches for UIL. Captain Dane, it says we performed in 2015, and the 7th graders' Cape Breton March was a military march, and we performed that last year. The listening example is the Washington Post March. Our next type of march is a concert march. They're also called symphonic marches, and they are intended for concert use only. So that means that they have more options in the instruments that they use. They can be scored more delicately. Typically, there's also more dynamic range because the marches are designed to be performed indoors. Unexpected instruments such as bassoons are also common in concert marches because, once again, we're playing inside. Examples of concert marches are Raiders March by John Williams and Marching Song by my favorite composer, Gustav Holst. The Smyre bands have performed 2 concert marches. Darklands March by Randall Standridge was performed in 2016, and Fortitude by Willie Owens was performed by the 6th and 7th grade band in 2018. Today's listening example is Children's March by Percy Grainger. It's a really long march. We're only going to listen to 2 minutes of it.